The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
It's time to go on the mat. The Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, joined by a man who loves comfortable shoes, Doug Van Gelder.
Well, I am the shoe master.
Boy.
I've got 3 pairs, I think, now. It's more than I've ever had in my whole life.
Those are dandies. You
Yeah.
got the I don't know if you call those quarter-length white socks. They look sharp. I don't know if they're comfortable.
I think they're called anklets.
Anklets. Okay, you're rocking them, Doug.
Well, it's good to know.
There's nothing like a comfortable
It's good
pair
to
of
know
shoes.
I'm a fashionista. Spent some time in Grundy Center this past weekend.
You did?
Got out without the authorities catching up to me, so it was a good weekend.
Man, how did that happen?
Well,
It was Felix Grundy days, so he got
the exchange student that lived with us when I was in high school came back for his 50th class reunion.
Okay.
And a good time was had by all. Let's put it that way. So
Was it Felix Grundy Day?
yes, it was Felix Grundy days.
Okay.
We got to get you guys somehow got to get a float over there for that.
Felix
You could take to
Grundy
all
Days.
these, all these community to-dos.
events and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That might be fun.
I think that'd be a perfect task for the blue muffin.
Well, what kind of turnout do they get for Felix Grundy Days?
Oh, thousands and thousands of people come and watch the parade. I know that.
Really?
They had their inductions into the Hall of Fame, Athletics Hall of Fame there in Grundy Center. And Saturday morning there was a breakfast that, the omelet breakfast. They had all the current athletic teams making omelets and just generally serving it. And it was, it's an outstanding small community event. It really is.
Well, on that note, with Grundy Center, we had someone who's from Grundy Center. He was a Division II NCAA champion from Northern Iowa in 1975. I hope you know who he is. His name Randy Omvig.
Well, yeah, he coached there after I left.
Yeah.
Coached there in Grundy Center.
But Grundy for life, baby. Once you're there, man, you're a player for life. So don't be dogging it just because he didn't happen to be in your era, Doug.
Well, yeah.
I mean, he just thinks life exists when Doug exists.
See, there was life before and there was life after I left, and I'm really having a hard time accepting
I know you
that.
are, because be an icon in Grundy with humility. I think that's the lesson learned here. But do you remember Randy Omvig? Great guy.
Oh, yeah, I remember him wrestling up at UNI. He was a powerful young man.
Yeah, just
Rangy.
Yeah, heavyweight champion in Division II, 1975. Fun to have him stop by the museum. And it's just fun to pick his brain about what he thinks about the sport and how it transpired. He's talking a lot about great heavyweights, saying Mike McCready
Where did
was
he
tough.
where did he prep at?
Eagle Grove.
Eagle Grove, yeah, okay.
Yep. The thing is, I'm ready for Doug a lot of times. I know Doug's going to ask questions on the spot. And I'm proud that I had the Eagle Grove in my pocket.
I'm sure I watched him at the state tournament because I was pretty active in the high school scene at that time. So I don't recall the matches right off the top of my head, but I didn't miss many.
Yeah.
That would have been the same class, I think, that Grundy Center was in.
Did you follow Aaron Judge in the home run contest, home run derby?
How can you even keep up with that? 513 feet.
Guys, man. You like the reason I bring it up is you're a Yankees fan.
Absolutely, but I don't care who Aaron Judge plays for. I'm glad he's with the Yankees, but I'm going to follow that. He's got a tremendous career ahead of him.
What, 6'7", 280?
Yeah.
How do you think he'd do in wrestling? You think he'd be all right?
Yes, I do.
Be a good wrestler?
I think he could be.
Do you? What a powerhouse.
He'd just have to have Neil show him few the ropes, And
yeah.
Physically, he's got the goods, so yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I'm assuming you're following the Yankees pretty hard right now. They're a little bit of a slump.
They've slumped down, so
yeah,
a lot of nagging injuries.
Yep, it happens, Doug.
I know
it happens. We have unique show, diverse show. We have J.J. Dillon, who won the Luthez Award last year. If you followed professional wrestling, he was the manager of the Four Horsemen. I like it because he wrestled in high school, has that background. We're going to talk with him about the George Tragos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame weekend coming up on July 20th through 22nd. Then we get to catch up with Bill Zadick, who is in Spain right now, so we're going to call him and hope to catch up with him while he's in Spain. And he's our U.S. national team coach for Freestyle. And always love talking about wrestling with Bill because he has a great insight, and he's guiding the ship right now for Freestyle, men's freestyle, and international wrestling. So a lot of the success is going to be because of his doing and his vision.
He's probably the tamest Zadick out there.
Well, there's only, you're talking about the dad too? You're including that? Okay, if you include the dad, then yes, he'd be the tamest. So, now, I have stuff I want to talk about, and I always come, but do you have anything? I want to make sure if there's anything on your mind for the sport that...
it's always on my mind, but I either look up the answer now, because I'm getting pretty good at using the internet, and I can look it up right off my phone and get my questions answered, so... If I have something that I can't figure out, that's when I'm coming to you.
Oh, well, but then I might just do it. I'll either go to Andy Hamilton or Jason Bryant and other resources that I have.
Well, you're a resource for me. Let's put it that way.
I know, but a lot of times I have to farm it out and find someone else to be the resource because they're a lot more knowledgeable than I am.
Well, not everybody's as quotable as you, though.
Well,
we found that out this last week, didn't we, Scott?
Hey.
Certainly.
What the heck?
Yeah.
We'll take it.
That was a great article in the newspaper. Proud of you.
Well, it was fun. I give a lot of credit. I think you're referencing the renovation that we're going through and getting to that point where we have a bigger wrestling room and a more dynamic facility. And one of the great things about having people involved like Matt Peters and Clint Fuller and Brad Penrith were all part of this project, creating this Dan Gable action figure.
You go back a long way with those first two, don't you?
I do, and Brad. I think all of them. I probably go back farther with Brad in some ways because he came to UNI with Mark Manning, picked up as UNI coach. So Brad and Clint were about the same time when I got into college and knew about Brad, of course, during his wrestling time. But it's fun when these projects
was Matt in your
fruition.
Class?
No, he wasn't.
A couple years behind you?
Correct. Yep, he was 97.
Yeah, okay.
So he'd have been in that Jason Bodensteiner class who also thinks you're an icon. So... There's people out there, Doug, for you. But, yeah, it was fun. The project was fantastic and just really enjoyed being able to see that come to completion. And as the article said, it sold out in 5 hours. The phone was ringing off the hook, emails galore. And actually someone had stopped by the museum the other day and said that you need to look this up because Cedar Rapids had done they do a constant contact and have an email, and they had mentioned the Dan Gable action figure. So congratulations to those guys for coming up with the idea and being a big part of it. So you need people involved, and Clint Fuller said it best. It's great to be involved with people that are all working toward great things, and I feel like that was one of those projects, and that's what we want to do at the renovation is get toward a point where we have a big wrestling room. And we
sure got my wife thinking. She wonders where you're going to expand that to.
No, we're not expanding, we're renovating. So we have plans.
I kind of made this. She thought it was going to be bigger.
No.
To have more, but I understand.
Well, the wrestling room will be bigger.
Yeah, it will be. That's what she was concerned about.
Yeah. So
where is that going to go?
Yeah.
Because she knows it's pretty tightly packed down there right now. So.
Well, we have a plan, and if you want to stop by the museum and see the plans, we welcome that.
I'll bring her by.
Yeah. We can show you exactly.
And you can show her firsthand.
We will. So we welcome that for anyone that wants to stop by and check it out. But we're excited about that. And we just talked to Scott about that earlier today and talked about what we can do with it. And I think it just sets the tone for what we want to do. And it needs to be a revolving door. We don't want one-time visitors. No, you went to Cooperstown in 2002, National Baseball Hall of Fame. I think that's the only time you went, right?
No, I've been there 3 times now.
Okay. But we want people there 300 times. That's how we
come and make it a social hub.
Yeah, we want it to be
that's great
visitor friendly. I know there's been kids with the kids club and parents and people within the future Trojans that have been there more than 300 times.
I wish I had $1 million to give you. You're doing a great job.
Well, we're working toward it, so it's a lot of fun to see how this comes out. Hey, I don't know if you got the most recent Win magazine.
Yeah,
I thought the interview.
Haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Well, the interview with Rich Bender I want to talk about because he had a great insight about international wrestling, and of course we're in the international wrestling season, and I'm not sure. For the most part, there's truly international wrestling fans. I think that you learn about international wrestling because of your knowledge of college wrestling. So because you know Thomas Gilman and you followed the Hawkeyes, now he made a world team, now you have an inherited interest. And so he brought up a great point about the largest fan base surrounds college wrestling, as you and I know, and I think it probably the largest fan base actually surrounds youth wrestling, and it diminishes the higher level you go, and international wrestling has the smallest fan base. But he talks about Iowa being the center of the wrestling universe, which I still think it is, and you have the Olympic trials there. But to be able to transition to an international wrestling fan is difficult because, like he says, the competitions are sporadic. You have one going on right now in Spain for international wrestling. Of course, we're not going to be able to go to Spain for that.
All over the world.
All over the world, right. So our opportunities come from World Team Trials. Hopefully they're close by. U.S. Open. You might be able to watch Beat the Streets. But other than that, when are your opportunities to see Jordan Burroughs or Kyle Snyder live? Not many. The point being is that, and so feeding into that with the limited opportunities, and when you have college wrestling, you get to see these guys potentially 40 to 50 times. Maybe a limited schedule gets you to 25 to 30, but you have opportunities to see these guys wrestle live, and they're going to be in your hometown and your backyard because you follow the sport and it's your team. But I think with the museum, I think that's the direction we want to go. We want to be able to have a wrestling room and say, all right, let's get a Panther Wrestling Club athlete and get a Cyclone Wrestling Club athlete, and let's just have them wrestle in an exhibition at the museum. And maybe it's 200 people show up, but you get to showcase your
Are there
talents.
women training at those centers?
Which centers?
Cyclones and Panthers. And
I think Allie Reagan is going to start training at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, a silver medalist. And so I think they're
that's
up to
one of
speed
the key things that needs to happen to make that grow. Female wrestling.
It absolutely does. It needs to go to that level. But I think the point being is that we want more outlets to showcase these guys so that we can show them in a different light. And that's why I think that War at West Gym was fantastic when you had Blaze Cabell and you had Kyvan Gadsden as the highlight match.
Super.
It was just you need more of that. That was just, to me, that was just a taste of what needs to happen. And there's really not a lot of incentives to keep going on after college wrestling. What keeps you in the game unless you're top 3 on the ladder and you're getting paid? It's tough because once you realize you didn't make that world team, you're kind of left for dead unless you're an assistant wrestling coach and you have the opportunity to make money that way. So
yeah, absolutely. I
think we need more outlets, but and there's been talk of professional wrestling leagues. They had the Real Pro Wrestling and they've had different opportunities, but I think that's where it gets limited after college. And that's why so many guys are going to mixed martial arts, because it fulfills that competitive outlet and you can make money and it translates into the next level. So right now, we've said it before, professional wrestling for college wrestlers is mixed martial arts. That's the next step. Or you can go the entertainment route, which we recognize both at the museum, both MMA and professional wrestling. You have those options. But I would love to see these guys stay more in the international style. I thought from what we saw at the World Team Trials, and I think you'd agree with this, that wrestling was outstanding. And that alone makes you want to go back and see more of it.
It was absolutely one of the best tournaments that I've seen. And I mean, that was by far the most interesting and exciting finals that I've ever witnessed.
There's no doubt. And you're right. A lot of people made that comment that this was so much fun and that wrestling was so outstanding. And so for not to just have us say it, it's good when it's unsolicited and people are just bringing that up, that they had so much fun. And again, kudos to Lincoln for putting on such a great product, but I think we can get more of that if we package it right. So now that the World Team Trials are over, what do we have to do? We don't get to see wrestling on American soil again until 2018, pretty much. Maybe later in the year at the Dave Schultz, but it's going to be a long way to go to be able to see live wrestling.
Well, yeah,
in the United States.
I feel it's money is what's going to keep the wrestling alive, and that's one thing that somehow we've got to get better at raising money. It could be done through a tournament where you give $5,000 to a winner of a weight class. Something, that's just an arbitrary number, but they need to have a chance to earn some cash. And you could limit it to the people that aren't on the national team. You could include them. There's just a lot of ways to do it. I think that could be worked out.
So where do you stand right now as far as your enjoyability? You love watching wrestling. I think you appreciate what's on the mat as much as anybody that's ever watched wrestling. Would you rather go to a college wrestling match right now or a freestyle wrestling match right now? What would be your choice if you got?
If I had to make a choice,
you had to make a choice. What would you want to see more?
I think it would be freestyle.
You'd want to watch freestyle
just
more.
For that simple fact that they don't keep writing time.
But there's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah, there is. And I tell you, this last, like you said, the World Team Trials, so outstanding. And just, unless you witnessed it, you can't really understand how wonderful it was as a wrestling fan.
Yeah, you can't, because to be there live, even if you watched it on Flow Wrestling, I don't think you really quite grasp.
Yeah, you still haven't. If you're watching it on Flow now, you know the outcomes.
Yeah.
Which limits the drama.
Yeah.
But,
it
was just so far above anything that I'd ever witnessed. It was better than the Worlds out in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think so too. It was really great. On that note, one thing that surprised me, and I hadn't thought about this, but it clicked when I saw it, and I said, that couldn't make sense. Jordan Burroughs just made his 7th consecutive world team. 7th consecutive, and that's the second longest streak for any American behind Bruce Baumgartner.
Bruce Baumgartner, yeah.
It makes sense now that you think about it. He won it in 2011, and he's gone that
John
far.
Smith 6?
He won 6 in a row.
Yeah.
And so Jordan Burroughs won 2011, 2012, 2013, bronze in 2014, won it in 2015, so he has 4, and then didn't place at the 2016 Olympics, but now he made the world team again, so 7 in a row. That really is a telling stat for Jordan Burroughs. And I just, until it was written, I didn't think about that he's just been doing it that long, and it just to make a world team is difficult. And so I'm really putting Jordan Burroughs in that ilk that he's in our top 5 best Americans ever. I think he's there right now, regardless of what happens upcoming. I think he's established himself without a doubt as one of the all-time greats.
That's one of the things that's being discussed too, is should those guys have the bye?
Yeah,
into the championships, and I agree with that. I think we have to do away with that rule.
It's a hot topic. We'll talk more hot topics like that with Bill Zadick in our final segment. Up next, we have J.J. Dillon of the Four Horsemen. He's going to talk professional wrestling next on the mat.
When all you want is sports, all you need is 1650 The Fan.
We are back on the mat, 1650 The Fan. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with Doug Van Gelder. First guest, love this guy. He's coming into Waterloo, Iowa for the George Tragos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame weekend. That's July 20 through 22. No one could cut a promo like this guy. He was part of the Four Horsemen. He was the manager. He got our Luthez World Heavyweight Championship award last year. He's coming back for the 3rd year in a row. J.J. Dillon, welcome back to the program.
Kyle, this is it's my pleasure. It's an honor for me to be on with you. Waterloo, Iowa. I wrestled there back in the 80s and rekindled my love affair with Iowa and Waterloo in particular by coming to the Dan Gable Museum 3 years ago and being there for the George Tragos Luthez annual Hall of Fame induction. And just, every time I have a conversation, I talk about walking in that front door as Rob Schamberger was sitting there putting the finishing touches on that beautiful, beautiful mural that he painted on the wall. That is cemented in my mind, and the Dan Gable Museum is one of my favorite places in the world to go, and you're one of my favorite people.
Oh, I appreciate that, and it's cool because you grew up in professional wrestling, and that was your profession, but I think your son Jeffrey is more enamored with Dan Gable and Kurt Angle because of their amateur wrestling background.
Absolutely.
And how did that transpire? Did he just he grew up with it and found the sport that way?
I think so. You know, as my mother used to say, that his father, his life was wrestling, and so it was natural. Jeffrey, for those of you who've met him, know that is handicapped. He's a twin, and due to complications at birth, his sister was born. He came an hour and a half later, and touch and go with him. He has cerebral palsy, but fortunately, he cognitively is a smart guy. And Jeffrey got his degree, as did his sister, at the University of Delaware. It took him 5 years, where she graduated in 4, but he went through on the honor roll. Very proud of him. But back in high school, which was in Georgia, he wrestled and lettered his junior and senior year in wrestling, which had to be modified because of weakness on his left side with his hand and his leg, that he's in a power wheelchair, but he can't do standing takedowns. But on the mat, they always say that when somebody has a physical limitation, other parts of the body compensate for it. So all you have to do is shake hands with him one time, and you realize the strength that he has in his hand. And he wanted to do it on his own, which he did. And following, I guess, I think the first time that I was up there, Jeffrey was with me, and I acknowledged I always had this kind of preconceived notion that especially being in the Dan Gable Museum, Dan Gable being the greatest amateur wrestler ever produced in the United States, and Kurt Angle verified that assessment and proclaimed that he trained with Dan as Kurt was getting ready for the Olympics, in which he won a gold medal as well.
Right.
And he said it was the toughest year that he ever had training with Dan, and he would never want to put himself through that again, and wouldn't wish it on anyone else. But meeting Dan Gable for the first time and seeing how typical, I describe him as a typical Iowan. Just the people up there are just down-to-earth people, and you wouldn't know, there's no air of who he is. And not only with winning an Olympic gold medal, but going on to coach, and I think he had 17 national championships as the coach of Iowa, of which there was a string of like 9 in a row, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 15 and 9, but yeah.
15 and 9, okay. Yeah. I've been in the wrestling business too long. If I'm going to tell a story, I got to.
We got to embellish a little bit.
Apologize for that.
Yeah.
But 15 years is, that's amazing. And just going there, and the fact that Dan, who is revered up there and an icon in Iowa, would embrace having the George Tragos Lou Thez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame housed in his museum, and it's a wonderful place. And I was honored last year, like you say, with the Lou Thez World Heavyweight Championship Award, and it was presented to me by Lou's widow, Charlie Thez, and that made it even that much more significant. And as I sit here talking to you, I'm looking at it up on the wall, and a picture taken with Charlie, and I have the program frame from coming up there, and just it was such a great experience that I told you that you can count on me unless there's something health-wise or something that I can't get there. I'm committed to wanting to come back there every year because I enjoy the place so much. It's a wonderful place to visit.
We are on the mat with J.J. Dillon, manager of the Four Horsemen, and I like that you wrestled, right? You had a little bit of an amateur wrestling background. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I attended Albright College in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I go back to when I was a young kid interested in wrestling, and I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey, and I still to this day never have been given an explanation about why they didn't have an amateur wrestling program. I don't know if it was statewide or just in my school district, but I discovered professional wrestling, And it was the era with Argentina Rocca and Miguel Perez and Dr. Jerry Graham and Johnny Valentine. And a guy that was there at the time was the original Zebra Kid, who was George Bolus from Warren, Ohio, who was an amateur champion at Ohio State. And he was one of the guys that I talked to, which, anybody that, has a dream of becoming a professional wrestler someday is actually going to. They didn't have schools and developmental territories back then, so you would savor every minute that you had with somebody who was in the business. And I remember with George, I said, can you? The age-old question, which I'm still asked many times today, I want to become a wrestler. Can you give me any advice? And he gave me the same advice that I pass on, all these years later, a half a century later. First thing he said was, get your schooling, go to college and get your degree, because wrestling is a tough business, and you're susceptible to injury. It is a business. There are a lot of guys chase the dream and just it doesn't happen for them. And if you've got that diploma in your back pocket to fall back on, that's your safety net. And that's why it's so important that you get it. And when you're getting your education, learn the fundamentals of amateur wrestling, because that will serve you well in the professional ranks. People think, well, there's a distinct difference between the two. They're different approaches, different abilities, but if you are someone who learns the fundamentals, as George Bolus recommended to me, it will enhance your career as a professional. And he was absolutely right. And I passed that same thing on today. So I went to Albright College. And one of the reasons was it was Eastern Pennsylvania in Reading, not too, 100 miles from where I was born and raised in New Jersey. And they had a wrestling team, small school. And so I went out for the team, even though I was the one guy that had no experience. And in Eastern Pennsylvania, there was a hotbed of wrestling in that part of it. All the schools, all the colleges had wrestling. Penn State was big. And so I went out for the team like a fish out of water, and I had to learn right from the get-go. And it was a very humbling experience. But I gained respect of the other guys because they knew that I was there with the right attitude that I wanted to learn, and they helped me. So I did learn the fundamentals, and I think the first time I went to Waterloo and Jeffrey was with me, when I, was asked to say a few words, I said, I'm here. Yes, I had an amateur background, but I wasn't very good. And the best amateur wrestler in the family, even though he's disabled, is sitting right down there, and that's my son, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
So that, coming up there and just meeting Dan Gable and being around people like Jim Raschke, who was a great amateur at Nebraska, and being around Larry Henning, and just Kurt Angle when he came up there, and just all the amateurs that have been, Danny Hodge. Oh, I was fortunate. I never got a chance to wrestle Danny Hodge as a professional, and it was, if I had a magic wand and my bucket list, that would be one of the things near the top of the list, just to say that I was in the ring one time. We shared a dressing room in different territories, but I never got a chance to wrestle Danny Hodge. And I just, him being the great amateur wrestler and boxer at the same time, he just was a marvelous athlete. And it's just, I met so many wonderful people up there that are tied to the museum. And I always had this preconceived notion that because I wasn't a great amateur, that I'd be like a fish out of water going up there. And the first time that I met you, Kyle, was at Las Vegas at CAC the year, that would be going back about 3 years ago, when they honored Gerald Briscoe. And you were there along with a couple other people were there at the same time from the hall. I'm trying to think who.
Troy Peterson would have been there.
Troy Peterson was definitely there. Yes, he was. And it just, I was totally blown away when I was introduced to you, and you said we would hope someday that you would come up to Waterloo, and I was kind of taken aback, not expecting that kind of reception from you. You gave me your business card, and you may not remember, but I do. The next morning, I got a very nice personal email message from you saying that you enjoyed meeting me and you hoped that I was sincere about me wanting to come up to Waterloo. And so that was when I made the commitment and took Jeffrey with me. And that was a turning point in my career, to come up there and to meet Dan Gable, to see Troy Peterson, and go to one of the Impact Pro Wrestling events. I mean, he runs all through Iowa during the year, but, to be there. And of course, William Murdoch is heavily involved. He was in Las Vegas, and he wrote Jack Briscoe's autobiography, is very involved with charitable things, the Headlock on Hunger that Jim Ross is heads, and that I strongly support. Just so many positive things that are a reflection on the whole wrestling industry, but amateur wrestling and professional wrestling, both holding hands and trying to do positive things together. I just enjoy coming up there.
We are on the mat with J.J. Dillon of the Four Horsemen. He won the Luthez Award last year. He's going to be in Waterloo, Iowa for the George Tragos Luthez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame induction weekend. It's July 20 through 22. Have a great docket, and J.J. Dillon will be there. One of this year's.
I understand Magnum TA is going to be there. He's getting the Luthez Award this year.
Magnum TA, yep.
Oh, richly deserved. And Stan Hansen, one of the real icons of our business, is getting the Frank Gotch Award. So it's going to be a great time, and I don't see Stan that often, and I don't get to see Terry Allen that often, so that's an extra treat for me, coming to Waterloo knowing that I'm going to see these guys, and the fans that want to come up there, knowing that Magnum is going to be there, Stan Hansen, Gerald Briscoe is always there with his son Wes, Dan Gable is there every year, Brian Blair, president of Cauliflower Alley, traditionally comes every year, and of course his tag partner Jim Brunzell is there, and
American Alpha's here this year.
Larry Henning, and Paul Orndorff's being honored this year. So, Paul will be there, as is Stan Hansen. So,
I wanted to ask you
a lot of people.
I wanted to ask you about Dusty Rhodes. I mean, tell us about him and his legacy. He's been inducted posthumously, but what was his impact on the sport?
He was someone who I was professionally involved with for many years, both in the spotlight, across the ring. He was the main adversary, and he was the catalyst that drew anybody and everybody. People didn't buy tickets just to see the Four Horsemen standing in the corner, as flamboyant as Ric Flair is. We had to have that, that spotlight on somebody that was at that same level across the ring, and that was Dusty Rhodes. And he surrounded himself with the Road Warriors, Ronnie Garvin and Magnum TA before his accident, the Road Warriors, and we just had a wonderful time and drew a lot of money, and it was gory years of wrestling, and through it all I developed always a professional respect for Dusty Rhodes, but a personal relationship with him, and Michelle is widow and is a wonderful person, and I watched his sons grow up. Just a great family, and Dusty was really as flamboyant as he was as the American dream. He was also a loving father and a wonderful family man, and I used to go to their home also, and at Christmas time especially for get-togethers, and I just got to be very, very close to Dusty and worked with him professionally in booking offices, and it was a loss when he passed that. He was such a bigger-than-life character that you couldn't imagine the world without a Dusty Rhodes, and I felt the same way about Roddy Piper. He was also a bigger-than-life character. But Dusty was someone who I was particularly close to and just thought the world of both he and Michelle.
All right, real quick as we wind down our time, everyone wants to know about Ric Flair. If you could sum up Ric Flair in a minute, what would you say?
He's the real deal. What you see is what you get. And people are thinking, nobody can live a lifestyle like that of wheeling, dealing, jet flying, kiss stealing, son of a gun. And that is the nature boy. And I look at the times that I spent nights with him and wonder when I slept, and trying to keep up with him, wonder that I salvaged enough brain cells to still be able to have a reasonable conversation with my good friend Kyle Klingman on 1650, the Fan.
Now, in thinking about that, are there stories that are lockbox for you that you'll never let the general public know?
Well, Kyle, as much as I respect you and think the world of you, if I told you some of the stories and shared them with you, I'd have to kill you.
I'm sure you would. Probably because I'd be implicated myself for knowing it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about coming up there. My daughter Missy is making the trip with me this year, and she loves coming up there and bought her own ticket, and she's going to help me do some of the driving, and just really excited about coming back to Waterloo and the Dan Gable Museum for this year's Trago Spez Hall of Fame induction weekend.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you. Thanks for being on this program. Always exciting to have you here, and it's a big trek for you coming all the way from Delaware, so we appreciate it.
That's all right, Kyle. The pleasure was all mine, and encourage everybody, if you're a true wrestling fan, it's got to be number one on your bucket list. Come to the Trago Spez induction, and it's a little bit more than a week away, so you still got time to make a reservation, get there, and it's a must-attend event.
All right, we appreciate that, and you mentioned a lot of names, and you're one of those names we're excited to have come back. So thanks for joining us for this spot, and we will talk to you in about a week and a half.
All right, Kyle, thank you, and the pleasure's all mine.
And we, JJ just mentioned briefly some of the names. I just wanted to follow up for those who didn't recognize those names, and you should. American Alpha, Chad Gable, Jason Jordan, Shelton Benjamin's going to be here, Sabu, if you recognize those names. A lot of people excited about this year's Hall of Fame class and those who are going to be attending. So I recommend you contact us if you want tickets, information. Contact us at the Gable Museum. We'll get you more information. Up next, we have the USA Wrestling National Team Coach for Freestyle. Bill Zadick is next on the mat.
Log on and listen online at 1650thefan.com, the online home of 1650 The Fan.
We are back on the mat, 1650 The Fan. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, along with Doug Van Gelder. We get to close out this show with a stud, 2006 World Champion, 1996 NCAA Wrestling Champion for the University of Iowa. Just one of my all-time favorite human beings. He's the U.S. national team coach for freestyle at USA Wrestling. Bill Zadick joins us from Spain. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing great, Kyle. How are you?
Hey, great. It's great to have you on. I know you have the Grand Prix coming up, and you're excited about that, and we're excited to talk to you about a lot of things. Doug and I were talking about how the competition was just so fantastic at the World Team Trials, and now you have a World Team set for the World Championships in France. I know you have a different lens that you have to watch through, and you have to be unbiased, but could you appreciate the quality of wrestling that you are seeing in Lincoln, Nebraska?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, several conversations with former wrestlers and great coaches, and that all mentioned that it's maybe one of the better trials we've seen in recent years, maybe a couple of decades even. It was just really exceptional quality of competition and excitement and action. And, I mean, the field, there's obviously some great names out there in the field, but it really lived up to its billing. And so it was a great trial to watch.
You have 7 of the 8 athletes on the freestyle world team at the Grand Prix. The one missing is the one that got injured at the World Team Trials, Jaden Cox, 3-time NCAA champion from Missouri. What's his status? I know a lot of people are probably curious about where he is.
Yeah, Jaden's doing great. He was looked good in training camp and was chomping at the bit. Was wanting to get out there, but we just felt it was best to keep him healing and keep him on progress. It would be nice to have a tune-up, but I think a healthy Jaden is a dangerous Jaden, and so that's kind of the course we took for him. And the 7 guys that are here, they're ready to rock and roll, and it's going to be a good tournament. I think it's going to be a good tune-up for the Worlds. I think we'll see some good competition here. Maybe a little bit better than some years. With the Golden Grand Prix not coming off, I think we're going to see some better competition here. So
going back to Jaden Cox, he is going live in practice, or is he just on the Airdyne and conditioning drills right now? Yeah,
no, he was working pretty hard. He was wrestling hard, and we were pretty strategic about what we had him doing, but he was doing some live wrestling and lots of drilling, and he looks good, looks sharp.
We are on the mat with Bill Zadick, head wrestling coach for Freestyle USA national team. He works for USA Wrestling. He's in Spain right now for the Grand Prix. 7 of the 8 world team members there. The one that stands out probably is Jordan Burroughs. He made the world team again, his 7th world team in a row. When you look at Jordan Burroughs and where he is, he's 29 years old. Where is he right now on his career trajectory and how he's looking right now?
Well, I still think he's the best guy in the world, and I think he can do anything that he wants to do. He's worked hard and been diligent since Rio, and that was difficult for he and his whole team, his family, his personal coaches, and for us as well. We want him, of course, to be as successful as he can be, and he's been a leader for our team and continues to be a leader. And so what I see in training is a guy who's gotten back to what made him hungry and what he loves about sport. And he's training with passion, and he's making progress every day. And so I think he can do anything he wants as long as he wants to and is motivated to do so. So, I haven't seen any let up in him. Is he at the peak of his form? Maybe not quite, but dang, he's really good. I mean, you watch those trials and you watch U.S. Open and you watch other competitions that he's wrestled this year. He's wrestling well, and he's certainly faced some stiff opposition, but I think the trials were evident that he's progressing in a direction that's pretty positive.
You know Kyle Snyder very well because you've coached him for a long time. He came out to the Olympic Training Center after high school and trained there for a year. Wins the Worlds at 19, wins the Olympics at 20. Now he's on his 3rd world team in a row at the age of 21. I'm just trying to lock into what goes into a trajectory like that. How did he get so good so fast?
Well, it's a unique combination of a lot of things. He certainly is gifted as an athlete. He's got, a lot of physical gifts, but I think the biggest gift that he has is his mind, and he's passionate, loves what he does, and he's grateful for every minute that he gets to do it. And because of that, he continues to learn and grow and absorb more and more. And he certainly had a unique upbringing and has a great family, his mother and father and his siblings. When you meet his family, it makes a lot of sense on why he is the athlete, the performer that you see. He's very capable of emotionally adjusting and stabilizing to, big events, because he just, I think he loves wrestling, but I don't think it's the end all be all to him. I think it's very important, but I think he's well grounded as a human being, and he's just a great person. I've said this in other interviews. I've said it about a lot of our athletes. Even our whole national team and world team right now is these guys are great wrestlers, and they're better people than they are wrestlers, which says a lot. And, I'm blessed as a coach to get to work with folks like that. And, Kyle's just one of those guys. He had goals for himself, and he was pursuing those goals to the highest of his ability. I think, he's had great coaches along the way, and when I discovered him, he had great coaches before that started him right and started him well. And I think his senior year in high school, spending that time at the Olympic Training Center, opened his eyes, and the vision for our program there is I mean, he's the epitome. He's the standard of what that vision is, right? Of course, we're learning wrestling, we're learning technique, we're learning a lot of things, but more than anything, you're learning how to be a professional athlete. And that means making the right choices and understanding how to coach yourself and how to self-evaluate and how to be, constructively critical and learn and grow and improve. And he's done that extremely well, and then he's taken that stuff and put himself in other environments where he has great coaches at Ohio State with Tom Ryan and Lou Zelli, and now Tervel Dlognev. He's got great guidance, but he does that for himself. He looks for that environment. He looks for what those building blocks are. And because he loves what he does, he's always looking for the new information and the new angle on doing something to improve, whether it's technically, tactically, training methodology, whatever it is. And so there's just a tremendous passion there. And it's no mistake that kind of thing happens when you combine all of those factors.
So what's his end game? Could he be in your position in 10 years? Is he going to be a college coach? What do you see from him after competition?
I think he can do anything he doggone wants to be. He might be the president of the United States. I don't know, but yeah, certainly he's got a great mind. He's got a great wrestling mind. If when he decides he wants to get into coaching, I think he's going to have all the opportunity in the world. And I'd turn it over to him and be his developmental coach, retire if that's what he wanted to do. But yeah, I think he's going to be a blessing to United States wrestling for a long time.
We are on the mat with Bill Zadick, head wrestling coach of USA Wrestling's U.S. national team for freestyle, 2006 world champion. I know that local fans are going to be interested in Thomas Gilman. Had a great run to make the world team and looked pretty good doing it. Had some great comeback wins. What have you seen out of him at training camp?
Gilman's a tough kid. I mean, I love him. He's a kid I've had on a couple of developmental teams. This is his fourth world team. He was on a cadet team and 2 junior teams for me. And he's got a world medal, this kid's an elite competitor, and he's done great in training camp. He looks good. He's ready to go. Coming out of the Hawkeye program, he's gonna be well trained and ready. And I'm excited for him. He's hungry. He's excited to be on the senior level, and I think it's going to be an exciting run for him this summer.
Are you hopeful for this team? There's a lot of credentials, a lot of youth, but credentials, it sounds like it could be a good run.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful for every team. Every team that you coach, you're hopeful. I mean, you always want 8 golds or however many athletes on the team. You want them all to win. And so no different for this team. At the same time, we have to get the work done, and we have to be prepared. We have to be intelligent. We have to be tenacious and tough, and those things mean that you have to be able to do it on the day. On the day that your weight class wrestles, you can be the most prepared in the world, and you could get sick, or you could get whatever, stub your toe or have some superstitious thing, and you got to be prepared for all those things so that you make it happen when the whistle blows. And so there's a lot to that, and so we're just at this point we're just preparing the best we can prepare, and then go have some fun on the day it happens, and see what these guys can do. And I think they're all in a frame of mind where they're hungry and excited, and I think they believe in themselves, but we know the world's really good, and so we're going to be prepared and ready for that, and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be an exciting time in both here in Spain and then on to Paris as well.
You were an NCAA champion for the University of Iowa in 1996. Your brother is the associate head wrestling coach at Iowa State. Are we going to see Bill Zadick in some Iowa State gear?
He might. I mean, I haven't received any yet, to be honest. But,
really? He hasn't been smart enough to send you gear?
No, I think he's been too busy. I think they got bigger things to worry about than sending me gear right at the moment. But
yeah, probably.
Yeah, they're busy. They're diligent. I know they're excited to build a program. I know he's really glad to be back in the state of Iowa and the significance of the sport of wrestling within the state. And I know they feel, their whole staff feels like they have a big task in front of them, but they're looking forward to the challenge. I'm happy for him, and he's enjoying it, and it's good for wrestling. It's good for wrestling to have strong programs all over the place, and that's certainly one of our most storied programs. And so, I want to see him get strong and produce NCAA title contenders and world team members and world medalists.
Real quick here, got about 30 seconds. You have Kevin Jackson out there now. How closely are you guys going to work together?
We're going to work together very close, very close. I mean, Kevin was a national coach when I was an athlete, and we've had a long relationship, very good, positive relationship. He certainly has wisdom and experience and a lot to contribute, and in the developmental role, in the vein of Henry Cejudo and Kyle, we know what the potential is in that program, and I think he's going to be a valuable asset. And that's a major priority for me as a national coach. And so, along with he and Joe Russell, who, Joe may be the smartest guy in all of the sport of wrestling, and just a great person, amazing character. And I think the three of us will complement each other very well and bring a diverse mix of philosophy and ideas. And so the three of us together, I think, can do some exciting things. And I think Kevin's position is going to be a large part of that, and I look forward to working with him.
All right, we are out of time. Thanks for joining us, Bill. Great to have you from Spain. For Doug Van Gelder, Bill Zadick, and J.J. Dillon, I'm Kyle Klingman. You've been listening to On the Mat.
You've been listening to On the Mat, the Cedar Valley's longest-running radio show devoted entirely to wrestling. Brought to you by Rolling Ford and the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum on 1650 The Fan.
This show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.